The Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921 was one of the worst cases of racial violence in U.S. history. It took place in Greenwood, a prosperous black neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, often referred to as Black Wall Street for its thriving businesses and wealth. Over 2 days, countless lives were lost, homes and businesses were destroyed, and the community was left in ruins. For decades, the massacre was left out of history books and rarely discussed, erasing its significance. Today, however, it is being acknowledged as a pivotal event that highlights the long-standing impact of racial injustice in America. Before the massacre, Black Wall Street, which was founded in 1906, was one of the most prosperous black communities in the nation, a shining example of black entrepreneurship and self-sufficiency. This success was because many entrepreneurs in Greenwood were able to offer a wide range of services and open businesses that were often not available through white-owned establishments, like barbershops, jewelry stores, clothing stores, restaurants, etc. And up until the massacre, Greenwood was a symbol of what black communities could accomplish when given the opportunity and was very peaceful. However, on the morning of May 30th, 1921, all of this changed when a black man named Dick Rowland rode Tulsa's Drexel elevator with a white woman named Sarah Page. When Rowland entered the elevator, he accidentally stepped on Page's shoe, which caused her to lose her balance. When he attempted to catch her, she screamed, and Rowland shortly left the elevator after this occurred. A short amount of time passed, and a rumor of Rowland assaulting the woman spread quickly, which caused him to be arrested the next day on May 31st. Outside of the courthouse where Rowland was being held, large crowds began to gather, which consisted of a group of armed black men who were there to protect Rowland and a group of white protesters. And in a short amount of time, things began to get heated outside of the courthouse, and to the point that shots were fired. The African Americans were forced to retreat to the Greenwood County since they were outnumbered by a majority. However, the white protesters did not allow Rowland's protectors to flee, and instead, the mob followed them into Greenwood, which is where the violent massacre began. Members of the white mob went through all of the houses and buildings on Black Wall Street and looted them and torched the buildings. It did not take long for Greenwood to be surrounded by black smoke. Any of the residents attempting to flee were shot down by the mobs or hit by bullets raining down from planes flying above the neighborhood. One of the survivors of the massacre, named Viola Fletcher, stated that her and her family were only able to flee with the clothes that they had been wearing at the time, since the massacre occurred on the night of May 31st and had caught all of Greenwood's residents off guard. After over a day of the massacre still raging on, the National Guard was called to restore order on the afternoon of June 1st. But instead of arresting the white mobs, thousands of black Tulsans were detained until there was further investigation into what happened. 2 days later, on June 3rd, investigations were conducted and any evidence found was preserved so it could be shown in the grand jury. However, despite all of the violence and destruction the white mobs caused, none of them that participated in this act of violence were ever punished, and instead the black residents of Greenwood were deemed as a threat to law and never received any justice for the violence that occurred. This is further evident when later that summer, the grand jury dismisses all indictments and stated that it was the blacks that incited the violence and destruction. Decades later, on April 28, 2003, survivors of the massacre filed a federal lawsuit seeking reparations. This case continued to go back and forth until March 19, 2004, where the suit is dismissed, meaning that the victims of this serial and violent act were never served any justice. But this did not mark the end of the fight for justice. In 2010, a park called John Hope Franklin Reconciliation was opened in the Greenwood district. This park's purpose was to memorialize the Tulsa Massacre. It was named after John Hope Franklin, whose father survived the massacre. And in 2021, Greenwood Rising was opened, which is a history center telling the story of the massacre. And on May 19, 2021, the remaining survivors, Viola Fletcher and Leslie Randall, attempt to give reparations for the violence that occurred from May 31st to June 1st in 1921. The Tulsa Race Massacre destroyed a thriving black community, leaving hundreds dead and thousands homeless. Businesses, homes, and lives were lost in hours, and the community was never able to fully rebuild, which is why Fletcher and Randall decided to open the case back up and fight for the reparations that they and the rest of the victims deserved.